Hello and welcome to another episode of the Viva Bastardo show, brought to you by the Hagerty Podcast Network. Today we have David Beasley, an incredible automotive designer. He's responsible for all sorts of gems like the new Lancia Stratos, the Nissan IDx concept cars, which were incredible. He's worked at McLaren. He's doing very, very interesting stuff, and he has really, really unusual and unorthodox ideas. So let's get into it. More Beasley.
That's not something I've heard in a while.
Well, that's so much better, man. You know, your name lends itself to being shouted across rooms by stern headmasters.
Yep, that happened.
If we had worked together, you probably would not have liked me, man. When I worked in advertising, I worked with this guy called Jenkins. And as you can imagine, it's such a good shouting name. And this is in New York. And when he would come into the office, I would shout all the way across the office. I go, Jenkins! and after a while, you can imagine, maybe the first time it was vaguely amusing. After that, no longer amusing.
Oh, I've been called all sorts. So, yeah.
Oh,
Water for duck's back.
Oh, the sound is amazing now, man. Okay, so let's just go back. Wanted to join the RAF. Why did that not happen? Are you terribly short-sighted?
No, my eyesight's bloody good. I did all the basic flights.
How dare you, Phil?
No, it was simply a thing that when I was looking to join and when I was coming out of school, you go through the UCAS thing, what universities you want to go to. And I was still entertaining the idea of becoming a pilot. But my maths score was shocking. And they said, well, to be an officer, you definitely need a certain amount of mathematics. It kind of helps. But if you do a degree with a technical component, then, all is forgiven and you can do basic flight and the rest will teach you. So I said, okay. And I was always quite good at art. I had a wonderful teacher at school called Neville Crouch, who unfortunately passed away a couple of years ago from cancer. But he really pushed me to do design. He said, well, you've got a level head on you. You like problem solving, but you're good at art. So why not do industrial design? And in going through the UCAS book, he picked out car design, and Coventry just so happened to have a pretty good mechanics and aerodynamics part of the degree. And when I spoke to the recruiter, they said, well, yeah, that will cover it. So I went in thinking, okay, worst case scenario, I don't like this. I don't get a job in the industry. Straight into the RAF for me. But I really liked it, and I stuck it out for 4 years, got the master's. And then I said to myself, okay, if I don't graduate and get a job, off to the RAF for me. But
RAF as in RAF, just for so people to clarify. I read somewhere that that teacher, Neil Crouch, was it?
Neville Crouch, yeah.
Neville Crouch, sorry. He had suggested car design because you had been doodling in textbooks, cars. Is that true?
Yeah, that's absolutely true. But I kind of started off as one of those annoyance things because there is a shitty kid in class, and I won't mention his name because there's no point uttering his vowels.
It's like Voldemort.
Yeah, exactly. I was just drawing whatever, and he was always the smart kid. Daddy had a flash car, and he's like, "Well, you know about cars?" And I was like, "Well, I'll sketch one, see what happens." And yeah, just kind of took off from there.
Isn't it extraordinary, really, how the entire course of your life can be determined by the most random of acts? I think when you're a kid, you always imagine when you grow up, that your life is much more determined and planned than you think it is. But instead, some teacher notices you've been doodling cars, says, "What about cars?" And then next thing you know, you're a car designer.
Yeah. I find this still funny to this day because there are people, obviously, in my profession who are car nuts, and you've had a few of them on your show.
Yeah.
I really couldn't give two hoots for most of it. I really couldn't, but I love good design and I love a good story. And the more I got into cars, brands, the stories behind them, the more I realized this isn't just drawing fancy things and getting out of maths class. This is actually, there's something to it. It's almost like an avatar for the human spirit, the need to escape, the need to find beauty, the need to do something powerful or unpredictable and take life into your own hands. And I just thought, you know what, that's quite cool as a job. And there is a lot to it.
That's a really beautiful way of thinking about car design. And actually that leads me, before we've already fallen down the wormhole, but before we continue down the wormhole, we should just explain to people who you are. Who are you? And one of the things you're very well known for, of course, is that incident in Holland Park. But I know that you didn't realize you weren't wearing trousers. That was a mistake. But other than that,
we explained that. That's fine.
Other than that, you were the designer of the Nissan IDx.
Yeah, I was really fortunate to be working with a pretty good team on that one. It was an interesting project. It's probably still one of my favorite projects that I've worked on. We had an 80th anniversary sketch program come out, and this was for all of the studios from GDC in Japan, for NDE, NDA. So these are the American and European studios.
Were you were working in Nissan at the time?
Yes,
obviously. Yes, yeah. Just okay.
Yeah, it's just randomly slotted in from the outside. By the way, I've got a good idea. No, it doesn't work that way. I wish. So I was at Nissan Europe at the time, and I had previously worked in Nissan Japan for a couple of years, and then switched over to the London studio. And this competition, this global studio competition, came up, and it was all about the 80th anniversary, and it was an open competition. Shiro Nakamura, who was in charge at the time, didn't say anything other than just, what is your vision of a car that celebrates 80 years of Nissan? So, of course, people immediately went to retro. And I'd previously worked at Mini, where retro was the foregone conclusion of design. So I didn't want to do retro per se. I kind of did heritage inspired, or whatever designer bullshit you want to call that. And it was just luck of the draw. I just had one of those sketches that appealed. And it was quite a bizarre sketch, because I was using Kenzo Tange and the Japanese architecture movement of the Metabolists as reference, because that was from the 60s, 70s. And that was kind of the era that most people were going for 3-box. And I thought, okay, I use that as a metaphor. And I had this quite architectural looking thing that was neither retro yet still a bit futuristic. Lots of references of architecture in the background, quite Japanesey. And it just stuck.
But this
and I got super lucky.
This was in 2008, was it?
When
was that, the idea? No, later than that, right?
Yeah, 2013, it was at Most Show.
Yeah.
So we must have started 2011, 2012.
Right. So, well, God, there's so many things to say. First of all, I remember clearly seeing those and just thinking, I guess there's always a little boy in everyone, or little child in everyone who loves cars. And every time you see a concept car, you always want, please, 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 please be real.
That one was so close.
I was reading about it. I mean, it's kind of like making The Godfather, and then the studio going, yeah, we're not going to release this. Because and I understand. I read the reasons why not, and it was purely economic, right? They were a bunch of
no.
No.
How much I'm going to get shot for this? There was a lot of politics involved. First of all, Nissan didn't have a platform. They didn't have a front engine rear wheel drive, so that was a bit of a problem. And it was lightly communicated in the press in Japan, so I guess I can talk about it. We talked to Mazda about getting the MX-5 platform, but Mazda had already signed on with, at the time, FCA, Fiat, for the little Abarth Spider. So that was not going to happen.
Yeah.
And I think, if memory serves me correct, one of the guys who was in charge of the program, Satoru Tai, I think, said that when he had the conversation with the Mazda engineer kind of pulled him aside and said, it's such a special thing doing a front-engined rear-wheel drive, an FR platform. You should probably do it yourself and enjoy it. Which, to any engineer or economist within the automotive program, means this is going to be bloody expensive. So that was the first problem. The second problem was one of the chaps who was in charge of product planning at the time, he was the vice president, I think, left. He quit and went to Aston Martin. And in doing that, the chap that took over didn't like him so much, so decided to kill a lot of projects that he was trying to push through.
It was like an ego thing.
A little bit. And then the third which was really the issue, was if they were trying to do it on the cheap and they weren't going to do an FR, could they do it on an existing platform? And there were a couple of options that they could have used, but all would have changed the proportions uncomfortably. And what people probably do know, if you know not a lot about that car, the concepts that is, they were built on Silvia platforms. So they were drivable. So it was the old S chassis sports cars. So nice locales, good proportions, good wheelbase. So we've done it before, but didn't want to do it, didn't see the invest.
Right.
Now, irony is, if that had been an EV, yeah, build it tomorrow. In fact, they could probably still build it tomorrow and it would still cause a storm. But it was just one of those things.
I find that the design of the IDX was quite ahead of its time in terms of what you see now. There's been this massive wave of kind of companies looking back at their, Hyundai, Peugeot with that glorious what was that one they did, the 508 or something, or they did anyway.
The design's going to kill me because I love him, and he's a brilliant guy, and I love that car as well.
Isn't he
what's the thing?
Gilles something?
No, he oversaw it. The actual designer. Oh, yeah, the name will come back to me.
Anyway, but your IDX kind of was quite prescient in that it was you were. I mean, like you say, it wasn't nostalgic, but it had. It had ideas of nostalgia. There were things in there that seemed like they were. You're cringing slightly. There were things in there that you looked at it and it felt like there were things from the past in there somehow.
Yeah,
but you weren't sure what they were.
Yeah, that was deliberate. We didn't want to do just a copy of a retro 510. Right. I was trying to put in Akoska Skyline references, CSP 311 Silvia references, 510 Triple S. A couple of other bits and pieces to try and find something that felt appropriate for the period, but in a very fresh way. And that's where the Metabolist came in. That's where Kenzo Tange really stepped in.
Sorry, do you want to just wait? Hang on a minute. You open up so many wormholes and just run past them. Just sprint, Usain Bolt. I don't even know what what's the Metabolist? It sounds like it's some sort of Victorian seance-y thing. Like, gather round, we're going to hold hands. What are the?
Bear with me.
For people who are not watching the YouTube, sorry, that silence, I should explain, is David running around grabbing some books from his library.
I am a bit of a book freak.
I just have to explain to people because I suddenly occurred to me that there's most people going to be listening to this, not watching it, and there was suddenly a silence. So
sorry,
that was you running around picking books off your shelves to show. So if you're watching the YouTube, you'll see what's happening. If you're listening to the radio, we'll have to describe it.
For anybody who would like an insight into how advanced and how free-thinking the Japanese were, particularly during the bubble era.
Hang on, wait, do you want... Okay, so the bubble era is?
The golden age, the golden part of the Japanese economy where they just had so much money, they built theme parks in every village.
So you're saying the 80s, 70s, 80s? Well, 80s,
60s,
right?
70s, and then it burst in the 80s pretty much.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, they just had... It was the miracle. They had everything. The manufacturing, everything was built in Japan. Everything Japanese was amazing. And they just had so much money. It's ridiculous. And in that period, at the beginning of that period, that's when they had a lot of crazy concepts of architecture, and they were building cities in the water and doing all sorts of mad things. And by the end of it, you had insane little K cars with gull-wing doors like the Autozams and things like that. Money was no object. It didn't really matter. Yeah, right. All of that stuff. I love that car, by the way.
Me too. I'm a huge Sarah fan.
So getting back to the architecture, Kenzo Tange, this chap, really, really important architect. He set up the Metabolist movement. And it was a counterbalance from European-esque Renaissance architecture in the way that it carried forward in its own way to the American skyscrapers and imperialism and all of that jazz. And the Japanese offered just another way of looking at it, which was very intelligent. It was very three-dimensional. And that still carries on to this day, the way that they do their architecture. So if you're ever in Tokyo and you go to Yoyogi National Stadium, which is just in the park opposite the shrine, you have this beautiful tented piece of architecture, it's just art. I have no idea how they figured this one out, and it's all off of one cable, and then the concrete all just under its own weight creates this perfect curve. So things like that, with these cantilevered forms, I love.
Yeah.
And that's what really inspired the nose on the IDX. There was this forward to the future aspect to it. But yeah, I think it went down well. I didn't want to put chrome around everything. I didn't want to do the traditional heritage thing. And then when we got to the final car, they decided to put chrome bumpers on it and paint it beige.
I see it's left deep scarred. It's left deep scarred. It's so interesting, man. It seems to me that clearly you're a person who is very interested in everything around himself, in terms of sort of sponging it all up and then regurgitating it out in cars somehow.
Yeah, that's what good designers have to be. Social sponge.
Right. Yeah, that's exactly right, man. You have to be kind of a sociologist and a bit of a psychologist and a bit of an architect and a bit of a designer and I don't know, I'm sure a dozen other things. It seems to me that you spent quite a bit of time in Japan.
Yeah.
And it feels like Japan had the thing I'm obsessed with Japan, and the thing I've said this endlessly, but the thing that I've always loved about Japan is that everything matters.
Yeah, very much so.
Whereas I feel like in the West, things will matter if you're willing to pay for them to matter.
Yeah, that's very true.
And
my wife is Japanese, so I get an excuse to go back every year, which is good. And it's always the little things.
Yeah, isn't it? It's always you go, oh, look, they're paying attention to this thing, and it doesn't even matter. No one's really going to see it, but it mattered to someone because it's inherent in the culture. But it seems like that has had some kind of influence on how you think.
Very much so. Yeah, there was another interesting anecdote. There was a guy at Nissan, Inui-san, who now teaches in Italy at one of the top design schools. And we were talking one day about the IDX clay as we're milling around it. And I'm trying to solve this highlight. And I'm having this argument with myself about volume and line versus highlights. And the Germans will always have the perfect highlights in a very Teutonic way and everything's clean.
Wait, hang on. Sorry, man. Just to back up a second. Do you have to explain to civilians what these things mean? So when you talk about...
Sorry.
Well, you've gone down the thesaurian wormhole. Yeah. So so a highlight on a car is, if you wouldn't mind...
How you perceive the light or the reflections of your surroundings across the body of the vehicle helps to describe the shape.
Okay. Perfect. That's beautifully said.
Surprised I haven't even had a decent cup of coffee yet. So I'm trying to argue about the body side and how that should be read versus what the highlight does, because I've got a very simple construction. And you naturally want to pull the highlight of the body side out so that when you see the highlight, it's nice and clean. It doesn't do any funny shapes or anything. But when you do that, you lose all the section in the car. I was like, shouldn't I? And Inui-san came over and he said, okay, David-san, this is very wabi-sabi. You have become Japanese. I'm like, wabi what? Who now? He said, wabi-sabi. And the basic principle is that it's okay to have a flaw. And it was explained to me like this. And this has stuck with me. This is brilliant. So every year, say they rebuild a shrine. I'm going to get the name wrong, but Izu Shrine or something like that on the Southern Peninsula. Every 20 years they rebuild this thing. And it's been on that site and been rebuilt for maybe hundreds of years, maybe more. And every time they rebuild it, they make one thing wrong. Deliberately. Maybe a step is slightly out of kilter. Maybe one of the carvings is upside down. Maybe they paint the wrong end of a bit of wood or something like that. And it's deliberate. Because the principle of wabi-sabi is that it's okay to celebrate failure because it proves it has a human soul. So if you take that out and it becomes too perfect, it becomes too Teutonic, it becomes too cold, and you lose that sense of humanity to it. Like, I don't have an emotional attachment to this. Right. But ironically, the iPhone 3GS, which had the big curved jelly bean back case, which many people went, it doesn't feel technical enough. But when you hold it in your hand, it feels right. You know which way up it is. There's that almost imperfection about it, but it's cool. Same with the IDx. I just left the wobble because when you look at it from the rear three-quarter, you see perfectly the section on the body side. And they're like, yeah, Japanese, well done.
It's interesting because the Japanese have this beautiful tradition and belief in imperfection. Isn't there, Kitsugi, I can't remember that. I'm sure I'm getting it entirely wrong, but that idea when you know what I'm talking about, when you break a ceramic,
the gold.
when you break a ceramic jar or vase, then you repair it, but then you highlight the crack with gold to highlight, so you turn the crack into something beautiful. You make it into, it's a feature, not a bug, to make it to dumb down a beautiful idea. And I've always really loved that idea. Actually, funnily enough, I was watching a little interview with Michael Caine, and he was talking. This is kind of tangentially related. He was talking about early on in his career, he was doing a play, and he was supposed to go. It was a set, and he was supposed to go through the door, and someone had knocked a chair over, and it blocked the door. And so he said to the director. The director said to him, "Use the difficult."
Yes, I've seen this.
And I thought, wow, that's so genius. Use the difficult, because you can always, in the difficult, you can always find, he said, you can always find, like, even if you turn it, you can always find a tiny, tiny way to turn it to your advantage and make something better by using the difficult. And I thought, wow, that's kind of genius. And it's weirdly similar to what we're talking about with this Japanese idea of celebrating the imperfection, making it a strength.
Yeah.
There's something lovely about that.
I would take that one step further. Before I got this job, I was looking at some options, and I spoke to a company in Iceland called Ossur, who make robotized prosthetics for people, which was super nice. And I was in this sci-fi geeky period of my life where I was like, oh, hell, I've got to watch Ghost in the Shell. I've got to watch Akira.
I feel like that might be all of your life.
There's a bit of that. There is quite a bit of that, to be fair. Yeah. But we're talking at Ossur, and I was talking to the head of design there, this really nice lady. And she was saying that we're still at the period where people who have prosthetics still feel like they're damaged in some way. And then I said, well, okay, that's not entirely true. They're at the forefront of human evolution, that if you lose something, you can regain it, but it's better. Like, imagine if you've got this robotized limb, but it has all these extra things, and people walk up to you and go, oh my God, that's cool. It's kind of like the Kitsugi thing. I mean, if you had a robotic hand and people didn't see it as a disability, they saw it as an awesome object, that you've bettered yourself through the imperfection. I just love that aspect. And design can do that. We can do that. And we now have the technology. Christ, I sound like the $1 Million Man.
I was just going to say, that's the was it $6 million man?
$6 million man? Has it gone up? It's more expensive these days.
Well, no, it was a $6 million man was that show in the 80s? But I was thinking 70s. But I was thinking, $6 million man now is a round of drinks. Like, what are you going to get? Like a bionic toe for that $6 million bucks? Yeah. But that was the ethos. But you're right though. That's there's someone who does they kind of customize leg prosthesis to make them into art. But that's not quite the same thing. What you're talking about is something I mean, are there prostheses that exist that are better than the original?
Yeah, I think they're getting there. If you look at Boston Dynamics and what they're kicking out the door, it won't take long before that's on human scale. I was just watching a Boston Dynamics video yesterday, in fact. It's extraordinary. I mean, this robot was jumping around, doing, somersaults. It's just, I mean... Well, Honda had Asimo, right? I think Hyundai have got some sort of robotics division, mobility division as well. So I'm just waiting till half their designers have bionic hands with like 6 pencils on it to do all these sketches at 1,000,000 miles an hour. They have all the clay tools. Well, I guess no one does clay models anymore. God, that was very Dickensian. No, we still do them. Really? Oh yeah. That's I was thinking as I was watching the Boston Dynamics thing, I was thinking, okay, I'm just basically seeing the end of humanity. I'm watching my own demise. Well, talking about that, I mean, that brings us to a really interesting topic these days that we're just starting to see is AI art. I mean, that's the end of our jobs, as some people are saying it. But frankly, and it's painful, but I'm starting to see portfolios come in saying, oh, I want to be a car designer. And you can tell some of that sketch work is not theirs. Right. Well, for the kids, this is not cool.
It's fascinating. It is fascinating because I've been seeing a lot of that on Instagram, like people
Mm.
posting AI stuff of cars and stuff, and it feels to me, um, it feels kind of like stock photography and stock illustration.
Yeah.
I don't know if people are going to know what that is, but I used to work in advertising for a long time, and there was stock houses. You would buy, like, it was sort of slightly generic illustration of things, and that's what it feels like. Like, it feels like it doesn't have. It's not. I haven't seen anything yet, but I'm not to say I won't. I'm sure we will, but I haven't seen anything yet that is genius. But what is interesting about the AI generated art is that it becomes for me. It's not about the art. It's about the way in which the words used to generate the art. That's the interesting part. Like, what are the things you can say to make? What's the thing you can say to make it do something genius?
That is a good question, and that comes down to, I think, a good education and a good understanding of the language. And I think I sound like an old man now. But kids these days, there are certain words that can be completely over their head. But if you were to use that word right, obviously AI knows what it is and would probably pull something out of the bag. I don't think you'll ever get to genius.
This sounds very Harry Pottery. It's like you need to know this. You need to be a wizard who knows the right spells.
Yeah, Latin included. It could be one of those things. I mean, we're seeing a lot of sports cars. Obviously, that's the natural default. So, sports car on the moon, McLaren, hashtag, whatever. You just think, you know what's going to happen here. But to get that genius thing, I don't think we're going to see that, because the AI only learns from what it sees on the internet. And then it's like a self-repeating virus. If it's learning off its own AI images, it will just disappear off its own arse, and you'll just get a standard grey box at some point. And that will be it. That will be the end of the internet.
Wait, you're prophesying the end of the internet right here? Beasley has spoken?
On AI generative art, yeah.
Whoa, there's a big... yeah, I mean, I've played with it quite a bit, but I've yet to find something that's... I've yet to produce something that I go, oh, that's really amazing. And it's sort of... but I guess it'll get there, right?
It will. I imagine it's quite useful if you want, just speaking logically as a designer, if you want to set a nice rendering, you could program in the parameters that you want for the background or for the type of vehicle. Obviously, the design of it will be trash, but you then Photoshop over your own style. Right. But you've got the references for the colors, you've got the references for reflections, the background. You've got a starkly great big nice piece of art. Right. But the design, is still you. You have to do that. So I can see that, and that's no different to designers these days using photographs in backgrounds or graphics and this, that, and the other. Nothing really changes in that respect. It's just how they want to use it. It's a tool like anything else. I suppose most studios will be looking into it, but if you want intuition, true genius, it's still down to us. It's still taking a random book of whatever, flicking through it, having a few coffees, and oh, that could be quite good. And Bob's your uncle. New design.
How do you? Do people ask you all the time where you get your ideas from? People, as an artist, people always ask me that idea, and I never have there's no answer for it.
No, I just say anything, everything, and I start to talk, and then they just switch off and walk away.
They just spray you with, you get the pepper spray or the taser, and then you wake up and they're gone.
Easy, hard we not. It's like designer. Okay.
The only analogy I can ever make for how ideas arrive is that you're sitting at home and and then the doorbell rings and it's an idea.
I'm living in the wrong neighborhood.
But you know what I mean? Like there's no, and it's quite frightening in a way because there is no definitive source, because you can't look at a map and point to the location, the origin point of ideas. You kind of just, they're just these kind of magical, mythological things that will just show up randomly at your door, ring your doorbell if you're lucky. But sometimes no one rings the bell for a while. Yeah,
it happens. Or sometimes they just randomly pop into your head when you're doing menial tasks. Like I was just fixing a leak. I've got this Swedish heat pump thing, which I need to figure out exactly what it does. And it sprung a leak, and you're in there mopping stuff up, and I'm thinking, oh, God, and that's an idea to note down later. So covered in God knows whatever it is, note it down on a piece of paper and I'll get back to that tomorrow. But it's just one of those things. I loved working in a bar when I was a student. And I would always keep a little notepad on me because if I had a sketch of an idea, whilst you're not thinking, your brain is free. It's like meditation. You don't have to think. If you think too hard, you're screwed. You're just going to go round and round in circles. But sometimes, as you said, it's bing bong, ideas here, and you
delivery.
Yeah.
Do you have notebooks full of ideas?
Yeah.
So do you?
Moleskine has a lot to answer for. They've taken all my money.
Do you often? I mean, I used to do this when I worked in advertising, and I'd recycle ideas endlessly. Like, okay, you're not going to buy it? Well, a year later, what about this idea? And you'd pitch it to a client like it was a new thing. Or can you not reveal?
Yes, I think any designer will do that if they really truly believe something's a good idea and they haven't managed to get it through. Of course, an element of that will always repeat itself. I also used to work in Italy. I was rather lucky to be part of Pininfarina.
Oh, I'm glad I wanted to ask you about that.
Yeah.
Man.
So the Italian style houses were renowned at some point for changing a grille, selling an idea. And I used to own a DeLorean, which Simon who alerted to it last week. That was my car, which he bought off me. But I was researching for writing a book on DeLorean on the design. And I was going through all the archives from Giugiaro, and you just see how many of the cars that he tried 3 or 4 ideas and obviously hadn't got through into production. He's like, screw it. This is going to go on the next one. And bingo, you've got the DeLorean.
Well, of course, man. I mean, it's Giugiaro and Gandini, but those two in particular, they're famous for they were eco-friendly before it was eco-friendly in terms of recycling ideas. I mean,
very economical.
What's that Ferrari? There's a Ferrari that ended up being the Fiat X19. You know what I mean? The concept car.
Yes.
I mean,
Rainbow.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's fantastic. And then you see, now it's an Fiat X19, but smaller and less kind of imposing, but similar design, similar proportions.
And affordable, that helps.
Yeah. So wait, tell me about, what was it like, what's it like working for Pininfarina? It's like, I don't know, going to if you're Catholic, like going to work for the Pope, or that's a shit, and that's the worst fucking analogy. But anyway, I mean, what was that like? What was it like working with the Italians there?
It was an amazing experience. I call it my 3rd degree. You learn so much. I went in as a cocky kid coming out of BMW Advanced and thinking, yeah, I kind of know my shit. I've got a few tricks up my sleeve when it comes to design. And you're walking through the door and realize you know nothing. And within the first few weeks, a couple of the old guard there, Valier come in, or Goran Popovic, just to name a few, who barely speak English, but would take the time between a cigarette and a cup of coffee to say, when you do the lines, it's faster. That's it. That's all you need. And it was all about just learning proportion, the stance, the simplicity of read. And they just don't teach you this stuff in schools.
Sorry.
Okay, granted, Pinin is very unique to that.
Hang on. Simplicity of read. You clearly have not. I feel like you haven't spoken to a non-car designer in maybe 10 or 15 years. Am I the first regular person you've spoken to in years?
COVID's been cruel.
Simplicity of read. I mean, I would imagine it's like a... well, you tell me, sorry.
Okay, so when I say simplicity of read, it's how you get from the front to the back. And in the 70s, so we're talking after Sputnik. So when the space race kicked off and Italian cars suddenly went from big, sexy, voluptuous numbers like Muras and 250s to Modulos and Stratos Zeros and things like that. So there was this crazy wedge sci-fi action going on. And even then, and Pinin was the master of this, they aligned all of their details, or allowed the bodies, or the called the waterline, the reflection on the body side where it's coming all the way through the car, to still pick up on all the details. So top of the nose, center of the lights, side vent, door handle, fin, tail light, they're all in one line, even if there's no physical line to connect them. That
like
simplicity of read.
Like a dot-to-dot drawing when you're a kid.
And in the 70s, it got a little bit more literal because they were doing clamshell constructions or 2-part bodies. So there was literally a line or a swage or a molding or something. But it's that simplicity of read, which is the first part of it. But the second part of it is not complicating it with too many themes or graphics. So if you just have one nice, simple shape, you've got that really dynamic line that comes through the car and maybe just one jewel of a detail, that's all you need, and that's memorable.
That's what my
Stratos is
friend
the
calls
perfect
the.
example.
That's what my friend calls designers called the eye of the duck. Have you heard that phrase?
No, but I'm going to use this now. Go on.
The eye of the duck is that one. It's my friend Bradley who he runs a watch company called Autodromo. He's also
I know Bradley.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he talks about the eye of the duck, which is this one little detail that kind of makes it all. It becomes in some ways the linchpin of the entire thing. Like with this one detail, it makes everything sing.
Yeah, totally.
And it's kind of a fascinating idea. So
The eye of the duck.
well, yes, Stratos. Well, okay, well, so I know you designed the new. I had a Stratos, which, funnily enough, is incredible from the front. I always found the side view, it was surprisingly bloated in a weird way. I found a bit fat from the side, but the front 3/4, oh, amazing. But you didn't you help design, work on the new Stratos?
Yep, I did. When I was at Pinin, that was the project we weren't allowed to talk about because obviously it was a Bertone car.
Right.
And it was in the contract, thou shalt not talk about Pininfarina doing a Stratos. Right. The guy who commissioned it brought it to us through a very convoluted way, and I won't go into that because that's a horror story. But basically, I worked on the team and I was given that car to start with. And I made a complete pig's ear of it at the start because obviously you're like, oh my God, I've been given an iconic car. What the do I do?
I know. I mean, that's like... That's like someone giving you the Mona Lisa, going, "Hey, look, we want to do a new Mona Lisa for 2023. What, give us your best shot." Yeah,
and I tried too hard, and I went way beyond what was considered a normal Stratos. To the
so
point
what does that mean, though? What does that mean?
Oh, they just wanted a car. They just wanted to cut up a Ferrari, take 200 mil out the wheelbase, ditch the body, and then put something on it. And I was trying to do a new brand language and create this new icon and do all these funny things. And try
but you know what, man? If in your defense, I would say, like, one of the new Countach, which I find is a crime against society in general. It's a horrifying. It's just anyway. But what? I'm sputtering with indignation in the most Victorian manner. My monocle has popped out in rage.
Good Lord, man.
Good God. But because I felt like if you're going to take that name, not dissimilar to what you felt when you're given the Stratos, it represents such an extraordinary thing. If you're going to take that name, you owe it to the name itself and what it and the revolution it created to do something extraordinary. And so
that's not what the client wanted.
Right.
Yeah, they basically wanted to copy and paste and shafted us in a review after Christmas, I think it was, where, again, I won't mention names, a certain gentleman of a certain large German company came in unannounced and tore through the design and went, that is not this, that's not a Stratos, that's not a Stratos. Look, here's what a real Stratos looks like. And, the client is always right.
But you weren't trying to make a Stratos. You were trying to interpret the idea of Stratos and make it, which is...
Yep. So one of the other designers that I had the pleasure of working with, Luca Bergonia, who is an absolute gem and a mammoth of a man, he joined the project and basically acted as the head for that and said, okay, we take Stratos and scale, fit it over the basic package and throw it back to them. And they lapped it up. They took it. So the only thing that survived on that car, which is truly me, is the arse of the car. And if you look at it underneath the taillights, it's actually quite curved. And that's what I wanted through the rest of the car. I wanted to keep the pin-in simple line, the pinch down the body side. And I wanted to get rid of all the sharp edges and the hard intersects of the wheel arches and things and just do a very nice, very modern, big rounded volume that then just came down to a simple wedge pinch at the front and just blend all the wheel arches in. And they untrimmed everything, went back to pure intersects and just...
God, I would love to see that. Well, you will never see it, Toledano.
And so I could sketch it on a napkin. But it was a fun project because it gave me within a few months a real sense of the pain of doing a bespoke car for a client and having to work with a client, but also this amazing can-do attitude of engineers coming in cold into a project and saying, all right, well, we've got this Ferrari that the guys just spent X amount of money on, and cutting off the bodywork, and you're seeing, true Ferrari fans, diehard engineers, bodywork guys crying as they're cutting this car apart, and then seeing how they can figure out to build it back together with bits from over here and new structures and new glass. And it was just this can-do attitude of like, we have to build it. We're going to build it. This is the deadline. The client's paid. There's a big bucket of cash over there. Do it. And it's just amazing to see. So whenever I go to a company and they say, oh, it can't be done, or no, that would take too long, I'm like, no, it can't. We can do it tomorrow. It's just willpower and maybe a bit of money. But yeah, it can be done.
This is very un-English of you.
I know. I've been corrupted.
Wait a minute. Show me your passport, sir.
Yeah, well, let's not get into that topic.
Well, one of the reasons I moved to America, although I always felt like America was the land of why not? And England was the land of why?
I always used to think that England was that country of why not, but it has very much become the country of why bother.
Right.
And that's a bit of a shame.
It is a bit of a shame.
But that's politics. I'm not getting into that. That is no. Avoid that.
So, I mean, it's interesting because I feel like in a weird way, there are so many parallels to designing cars and making ads in the sense that I found that my career in advertising was basically like a 12-year argument. You're always trying to persuade people that what you're saying is genius and their criticisms are wrong. Ish. But then I had to learn early on that you have to, at some point, you have to at least seem like you're taking on board what's being said and absorbing it and then changing things slightly. But how do you maintain the integrity of your ideas?
Oh, Jesus, that's a question and a half. Sometimes you just have to blindly follow it. If the gut is right, you have to follow it. And if they fail, they fail. If they succeed, they succeed. That's all luck. If, the part of you that says, I really believe in this, you've got to stick by it. Other times it's okay just to say, and I've had to learn this through bitter experience. Yeah, I screwed up. Didn't work. Okay, let's start again. Or let's try something else. Or yes, that idea is better. I've always believed that if you truly believe in the integrity of your idea, other people will believe in it too. If you're just, this one guy whistling in the wind, you've probably got a hell of a lot more to sell, and it's never going to be an easy task. So if you can get your ideas, the integrity to remain, it really is down to just passion and selling it and just being honest about it all and trying as best as you can. And the other thing I believe in, if you are passionate, people will see that passion and you will be able to say, okay, this guy really believes in it. Let's give him a shot, rather than just coldly ignoring it. I think Simon actually said something interesting on the last podcast that you did, that, if, oh Christ, I've just forgotten what he said. I was going to quote him verbatim. Okay.
This is the joy of aging.
Shit. I'll come back to it. But the principle was that if you truly do believe in it and you can push that idea, that if you have that passion, people will see it. They will believe in you, and it does make it a hell of a lot easier. I've been in presentations where people have put 100 sketches up on the wall, and it's great artwork. And you ask the designer, which one do you really like? It's like, okay, that doesn't sell it.
Right.
If you've got 100 sketches, and maybe just one is that, like, but this one, and it's the weirdest one, everybody goes, oh shit, are you sure about that? But okay, there's something in it. Push it, try it. Let's see how far you can get. I've worked with some crazy designers who are amazing about that. Well, and it's worth every minute of pain to try and get it to work, to stick by that integrity.
Well, just jumping, look, ultimately, passion is convincing. But you're right. You're right. Because when you look at people, particularly design, always really interesting and new design always requires a leap of faith from the people who've not conceived it. And
right, and that's the Simon thing I was just about to say.
And the thing that builds the bridge that allows them to make that leap, if I'm going to continue this metaphor, is your belief in the lunacy of what you're saying. If you are utterly convinced then people go, well, he believes it so much that maybe we're not seeing quite. We're not quite seeing it, but we should let him go with it for a bit. That makes any sense.
Yeah, it does. No, and that's what I think Simon was saying, similar sort of thing. It's like, if you're immediately saying no to an idea, you think, why am I saying no? And then go back to it and go, okay, let's just give it 5 minutes. Maybe my prejudices or my preconceptions have already been outdated. Maybe I'm just an old fuddy-duddy and I need to rethink my outlook. And that has really taught me to kind of stick by stuff sometimes. I might look like an old geezer with a bow tie and a silly waistcoat, but I assure you my ideas are slightly more on the crazier, fresher side than that.
I assure you, sir. It's actually funny.
It will happen.
It's actually interesting because I've found that in myself, that sometimes I instinctively recoil when I see things. And this is the most ridiculous of examples, but I own a De Tomaso Guara, speaking of unusual designs. So I think in person, it's really an interesting thing, I think. But the thing that what really bothers me is on the bonnet, there's grills on the bonnet, and I think they're just terrible. To me, they seem out of sorts with the car. So I asked my friends Auto Fabrica in England, I don't know if you know those guys. Yeah. They design the most amazing cars. They came up with a couple of grill suggestions, and one of them, and immediately I looked at them, I was like, no, this is no good. And I came back a couple of weeks later, and I looked at one of the grill ideas, and I thought, wow, that is amazing. And it's totally in keeping with the design of the car, but it seemed so radical that immediately I said no. And then and then I was just disappointed in myself for not being able to see it immediately. I thought, how can I not understand that was really great at the time?
It's one of those things. Maybe between the time that you first saw it and when you saw it again, you'd seen something else that had sparked that, or had led you down this garden path into this idea. And it's like, if we're having ideas in the studios, we're coming up with concepts, and maybe the top boss says, no, too much, do this, that, and the other. It's not right then. It's not to say it won't be right in the future. You alluded to it earlier when we said, how do you recycle ideas, and is that okay? Yeah, it's okay, because you will come to a point where maybe that idea that you had is absolutely applicable. But somebody says, oh, fuck, actually, that one, now it makes sense. This guy's kind of hinted at it over here, and okay, they're running with it. Let's get in there. Let's do it. Let's get ahead of the pack now. It's that right place, right moment type thing.
So can we just jump ahead for a minute? You're now working at Lynk Co.
Yes.
And which I've never heard. I don't know what it is, but you keep posting on your bloody Instagram this car. And I keep going, fuck, what is that? How can I get one? It looks amazing. And to me, that seems like a sort of compendium of really interesting ideas and lines and shapes that are quite beyond where we are in terms of what cars look like now. So can you please explain to me, Victorian Gentleman?
Okay, start with Lynk Co. So Lynk Co is a branch of Geely Automotive, who are one of the biggest car manufacturers in the world.
Chinese.
They own, yes, Chinese. Our friends and colleagues over there. They own Lotus. They own Volvo, Polestar. They've also got their own internal brands in China, such as Geely Automotive, Jidu, Maple, Geometry, and there are many, many more.
There's a car brand called Geometry?
Yes.
Fantastic. I feel like the sub-brands write themselves.
It's not as geometric as one would hope.
Here's the four-door Pythagoras.
That could be the new naming structure. I'm not allowed to talk about that. I don't know, honestly. But Lynk Co was this interesting moment in time when Geely took over Volvo, and obviously Geely were at the more common end of the market. I wouldn't say common, but they're like Volkswagen. And all of a sudden, they had the upper end Audi stuff because they bought Volvo. And they thought, well, how do we make use of all this investment? What are we going to do? So they started to use Volvo chassis and create a mid-premium, a next premium, not ultra luxury, but premium. So they're taking Volvo chassis and reskinning them with a very modern design, the antithesis of Volvo, which was very Scandinavian and clean and pure. And this was a little bit more poppy and fun and dark and mysterious, with lots of interesting lighting and detailing and stuff. And that brand has really just grown from there. And it's probably only about 5 or 6 years old in its entirety, but it has 9 models in its portfolio. We're moving into this next stage.
What brand is this? What is the brand?
Lynk Co.
So, but where are the cars? Where are the cars? Where are the? Show
well,
me
all
the
in
cars.
China. They're all in China. They've sold a hell of a lot of cars in China. They were one of the fastest growing brands in China at one point. They're branching into Europe. So if you come to Sweden, there's a Lynk Co club. So it's like a subscription service. You can pay different levels and you get a brand new car delivered to your door. Or you can pick up a week-old one or a month-old one. I don't know exactly what the system is, but it's for people who live in cities, don't want to pay servicing costs, don't have a garage, can't keep it on the street, but really want to get out, really want to explore, or need a car for that special journey or just for a weekend jolly. And it's the perfect excuse.
So that car, one of the things I remember, the lights, the headlights in the front are, that the whole thing is, what is that car? Is that a real car? Is that a concept car?
That is a concept car. So the one that I've been posting is the next day. We're trying our damnedest to see whether we can get that into production. So the future is looking very bright for us. Hence the name of the vehicle, the next day. It's our next statement of intent. And that was a easy project because we did that from first sketch to A-class model. And before you say, Beasley, you've done it again. What is A-class? A-class means A-class means the engineering surfaces. So it's that the surface data that you release to be machined or made or tooled. We did that whole process in 11 weeks. So insane creativity.
There is massive
sketch.
There is massive opportunity and freedom to be found in compressed timelines.
Yes.
I make that that's available. That's available as a T-shirt, by the way. It's a very catchy T-shirt.
It's very much the theory of how we work at Lynk Co. Our friends and colleagues in China like things to be done yesterday. So it is a great challenge to do things in a timeline of half or a third of what the industry standard is. And honestly, the team that I'm working with, they just run at 110% all the time. And we keep getting things done. And it's incredible to me. Absolutely incredible. I've never seen anything like it.
The distance between what you have on, everyone's going to be running to your Instagram account. What's your Instagram account? We should let people know so they can see. What? I forgot. Come now, Beasley. You don't know.
I might have changed it.
It's got a peculiar name.
UN Design Bureau. That was the name of my Undesign Bureau. So that was the name of my limited company when I was a freelancer.
Okay, so if you go on to Undesign Bureau, everyone who's listening, all three of you, you'll see. So the distance between what you've created, which I think looks incredible, and actually in some ways, not in part of the family of the Polestar-ish, it has. It does seem like there's some. Not similarities. It just feels like maybe some of the same words in the same language. But anyway, what's the distance between that thing and what's going to be really produced, or you don't know yet?
I can't talk about that.
For God's sake, Toledano.
Nice try. No,
here, drink this, Beasley. You'll feel woozy in a minute.
I can honestly say that it is serving as a great inspiration. But as soon as we do something like that, obviously we're now looking to the next big thing. Right. It's a constant evolutionary process. You can't just put a pin in the floor and say, right, that's it, everybody go on holiday. We are constantly moving forward. And that model, particularly the concept car, was just a great statement of intent to show what can be done in not only a short timeline, but also how we evolve as a brand, even though we're still very young. So a lot of the language, for example, was an amalgamation of some of the designers' work that we see in the studio that we placed onto one concept. So there's a lot of elements on there, and it is quite a busy design, but there is a common thread, a singular read through it. Like the pinch, what we call the Y shape on the body side. It's something that we've always wanted to try. And, you try and propose that. Sometimes it's not as successful as it can be, but on the show car, got acres of fender, so you can play around a bit with the sculpture and see what happens. So it was at the same time, it was a nice statement for where we want to be, but it was also a great opportunity to really explore and try and find new shapes, new volumes, new ways of looking at stance and proportions.
Is this electric car?
That one was a hybrid.
So,
we do have hybrids in our range. We are obviously moving on to the future in various guises of powertrains. And it was all part of the story. So if you ever read all the the bump about that. There's a good reason why it's a hybrid, and there's a reason why it's positioned and shaped and cut the way it is.
Do you think that we are kind of approaching another golden age of car design? I mean, let's just say the 70s, to me at least, the early 70s was this, or late 60s, early 70s was this amazing period. And then we went through this sort of doldrums, the 70s, 80s, not very interesting.
I don't think we're approaching another golden age. I think we've shot ourselves in the foot with that one.
Really?
I think we're about to go past it. And the reason why I say that is because this whole flying car drone thing is just, pardon the pun, it's a terrible pun. It's just about to take off.
This is fascinating, man. So hang on a minute. You think that we were sort of on the cusp of amazing car design, but it's going to be superseded by everyone's going to be jetsoning around in flying drones?
I think so. And you look at the amount of money that's been given to private aviation companies, car companies buying up EV flying taxi companies and all this stuff. Yes, it's in its infancy, but already you're starting to see designers move towards that. They're starting to experiment with it. We're at that horrible period of what happens if you just stick wings on a car. Oh, crap, no, that's a bad idea. Let's actually just put rotodynes on it. Let's change that. It's in its entirety. Car design where we are right now, it's all the same. I am awed with modern car design for the most part. It takes a lot to really impress me. Christ, I sound old. But if you look at the golden age, if you look at that golden age and you look at that period where overnight you had Mura and then Stratos Zero, people just went, what the bloody hell just happened? And it was the space race that changed it.
Right. Oh, really? That's what you think?
Yeah. Well, I mean, look at it. 1967, 68, 69. So you've got Sputnik, you've got
but hang on,
landings.
Sputnik was late 50s,
but
58.
So that kicked it off. But 67, 68, 69, you've got the Apollo missions.
Yeah.
And the race for the moon. So all of a sudden, people are like, oh, space is within humanity's reach. So all of a sudden, things become pointy shaped rather than the very classic feminine, masculine, Mura-esque shapes. And I think the space race caused our understanding of design to change. Everything went into the atomic space age. Everything became aero efficient. Fighter jets became mega advanced. Cars became pointed wedges. Even product design took a massive turn. Science fiction movies popped up all over the place with impossible screens and flat rockets. And that all happened within the space of 4 or 5 years. So naturally, the Italians, who are the fastest carrozzeriers to turn this stuff around, went, we'll have some of that, and cranked out a plethora of crazy concepts, which then totally redefined how we look at car design. But I think that's that paradigm change right there. That was that golden age. And we can't have that because of the internet age. What is the internet age and how does that describe a car design? It doesn't. We're just recycling the same things. We're going through post-80s, early 90s, where we're looking at
so
slightly more abstract areas, but nothing's new.
This is utterly fascinating, man. No, I find you a fascinating gentleman. Do you
give me a beer, see what happens?
I can only imagine, man. Do you think that the problem with the internet age is that basically we're sort of all trapped in it's like we're all living in a biosphere, drinking our own urine, telling ourselves we're drinking the finest claret?
There is a bit of that.
Do you think that's what's happening? Because we're all sort of, because it's so kind of omnipresent and it's so kind of, we just all see the same stuff repeatedly. So we're kind of churning out the same stuff-ish repeatedly.
I think so. Designers, we spoke about it earlier, we're social sponges. And if one interesting little idea pops up, everybody wants to have a crack at it. So, for example, a few years ago, Blender, which is a modeling program, became really popular, and it's free. So students were jumping on it all over the place. I mean, it's just free software. Absolutely, I'm going to learn this. And now studios are getting into the act where they're allowing their designers to create their own models in Blender. Previously, we used a program called Alias Auto Studio, but that was prohibitively expensive for studios and almost impossible for students to get proper licenses. So the fact that Blender is free and you can model, you can render, you can animate, it's been an absolute godsend for the students. But it's also meant that there's been a certain type of shape that has evolved from it because of the efficiency of use of the tool, the way we treat it. And that has now, within the last 10 years, permeated into designers who might be juniors or seniors who've used that, who've wanted to recycle that idea, that feeling that they first had to get it into design. So certain brands are really pushing that aesthetic. So it's becoming this drinking your own piss principle where designs are starting to look a lot like each other again. It's like the 50s in America.
So
this is the only thing. You're just recycling your recyclables.
So, so the tools are kind of, in a way, determining design aesthetics now a little bit.
Yeah, I think that is the case. It's exactly the same in the 70s and 80s. When industrial product design in the 80s went all squircles, everybody was in on it, whether it was the cars, whether it was packaging, whether it was hi-fis, it was all the same stuff. The new atomic space age design, it was all the same thing. 1930s America, streamlining, all the same thing. And I think we've got into that digital age where we can build, produce, animate, and post-production your entire project on Behance or Instagram and just say, yeah, this is my new so-and-so brand. Oh, yeah, that's cool. Oh, tweak a bit here. Oh, this is my new so-and-so car. You're like, hang on a minute, that looks familiar, but okay, that's cool. And it just keeps going round and round in circles. And this is the issue with the AI, because then the AI starts sampling this stuff and it just goes back through the loop again.
God, that's so okay. So what's the remedy for that then? Pencil.
I still believe in drawing by hand, absolutely. But in terms of design, setting our imaginations free, I think we all need to drop wheels. I think we all need to look at this new mobility, whether it's human-sized drones or whatever we want to call them. I think that is the new paradigm shift. And maybe
drop wheels, as in no more cars.
Yeah.
So do you have a...
Honestly, that could be possible in our lifetime.
Do you have... yours. Young whippersnapper. So do you have any drone designs? Any? You must have. Come now.
No,
Beasley.
I'm old school. I've not even thought about it. To me, it makes a lot of sense, but I've not drawn one. It's just...
Where are you? Are you in Sweden right now?
Yes.
I'm coming over there with beers. I'm going to pry with beers and make you draw a drone.
It's a date. Go on in.
All right, done. God, this... Okay, so I'm going to quote to you a quote that you quoted.
Oh, Christ.
Olafur Eliasson.
Yep.
Do you remember that quote?
Awesome artist.
Art poses questions. Yeah, amazing artist. Art poses questions. Design offers nothing but answers. And then you said, in today's climate, we need answers more than ever.
Yep.
So, answers for...
stupid questions, mostly. But questions relating to mobility, I think, is still, there's a lot of unanswered questions. Companies obviously looking at various forms of mobility, if we're still talking cars, or could it be last mile, or these bloody e-scooter things. I hate those things. They're a death trap. But we're still looking for that answer.
Do you have an idea? Do you? I'm willing to. I'm sure you have an idea.
I think this sounds like a terrible plug. It's not. I actually do think where Lynk Co Europe is a good answer.
Why?
Car companies need to produce vehicles. We need to keep people employed. We need to keep the economies going. We need to keep updating technologies. That's a given. That's the way that this consumerist society works. And specifically as a car designer, it keeps me in the job. But not everybody can afford a new car. The price of materials are going up. So therefore, the starting price of cars are incredibly expensive in some cases, especially if we're talking EVs. So if people can't afford a car but need access to mobility, what can we do? And things like this Lynk Co Club, where you sign in and get the vehicle when you need it, or it be delivered to your door. And let's think maybe 2-3 years from now, if this next generation of autonomy comes in with the way the cars drive, disabled people will be able to call up a car for when they need it to go see their friends, and the car will just arrive and take you to that place. That is a question that we need to answer for society. How do we keep mobile? How do we keep the gears turning in both the automotive sense, but also in an industrial sense, but equally for a societal sense? We need to answer the question of how to get people to move, how to get them out and about.
Well, there are two answers. There are two questions and two answers. What you're talking about, the Lynk Co current model, is an economic solution, right? In a way.
Yes,
but you're not. But it's not a technical revolution in the sense that, oh, okay, we're not you talk about the next step, like drones or whatever, like bionic suits that you just show up on your door, you put it on, and it's 10 league, or was it 7 leagues, 10 leagues? What were the boots? How many leagues do they cover? 10 league boots?
Oh yeah, it's 10 something like that. Yeah, I can't remember.
Anyway, they have multiple league boots that you put on, and actually, funnily enough, I saw some. I don't know what my viewing habits are peculiar. There are these shoes there are these things you put on over your shoes that are battery powered that make you walk at 2.5 times the speed of normal walking. But you're just walking normally, but they somehow amplify so that's a mobility solution.
Sounds like crotch rub to me.
Sounds like what?
Crotch rub. The tailor's going to hate you.
Yeah, no one's going to. It's not good. You can't wear those shoes if you have corduroy. Imagine
Jesus, static. That could be the new battery. That's how powers the world.
That's right. See, it's always thinking up there. Always work out there, Beasley.
New idea. No, it's okay. Mobility is an interesting thing, and getting people to use mobility. But I don't believe in these little e-scooter things, because you have to be out in the elements. And I live in Sweden, where it's 50 Shades of Grey. And most people think it's an erotic movie. No, it's describing the weather here in Sweden. It's pretty awful. So you're going to want comfort. So you're going to want your own space. So you still need this little cocoon. So whether it's on wheels or whether it flies, people still want that nice, calm, quiet, dry space that they can call theirs. What we need to teach people is not to treat them like public toilets. So I worked on one project in Pininfarina, which was the Bolloré Auto Electrica, the B0 car, which became the Paris Bolloré higher electric EV car. I don't know if you saw those.
Yeah.
And okay, the concept was a nice little car. The production version didn't hold up to its promise, but people just treated them like trash.
Those are the electric cars you have in Paris right now.
Yeah, and they've junked them all. They're all in fields. They're just all binned.
I was always amazed at how abused they looked.
Yeah, they were terrible, because people don't care if it's not their own thing.
Right.
So they just treat it like trash.
Yeah, but how do you answer that? That's a question that I'm not sure has an answer, unless you have an incredibly cohesive society like Japan, where people wouldn't.
Yeah.
But in the West, they just would.
I think you need to penalize people where it hurts in the pocket. So if you pay your subscription fee and you leave your car dirty, they take a big chunk of money out. Right. It's like you throw up in the back of a taxi. That'd be 50 quid, please. Yeah.
Not if you leg it.
Yeah, well, you can try.
You just run into a lamppost because you're so shit-faced.
I've seen that. It's just one of those things. And as much as it was painful to see when you walk around Paris and you see like tramps sleeping in these cars, and you think, God, at the same time, I can't blame them. Right. And it is that answer to what we need in society. We need a space for ourselves. So car will never go away in whatever shape or form it is. We always want personal transport.
Well, maybe the secret is that people tend to treat spaces nicely when they're beautiful and when the space makes them feel extraordinary or lovely, right? Like if you went into this car and it was so lovely that you thought, well, I don't want to throw up in the corner because look how nice it is. I'm not going to take a dump on the seat because it's lovely upholstery. Is that not you kind of out lovely people's baser instincts? Is that a design idea?
Yes, but then you're introducing class and affordability into it. So can you afford to sit in the nice one, or do you just have to slum it a little bit?
But that's the thing. But then I guess every question bursts another question. Like, well, why can't beautiful things why must they be expensive?
I've always asked the same question, and I was part of the initial kickoff of Datsun when Nissan reintroduced the brand. And I always remember this one design manager, I think it was an SVP or a VP or whatever his title was. And he said, you have to design a cheap car. It's like, okay, cool. We can design a cheap car. It doesn't have to look cheap. And he says, no, you must make it look cheap because you have to make the rest of the cars look better. So they buy the expensive cars.
Okay.
Like, wait, because I've always thought, do you remember the Mark Newson Ford 021C?
Yep.
I think they missed a trick with that. That should have been a 5,000 euro car. Big plastic molded parts, super easy, but great design. Good materials where it counts, but just the simplicity of it is just good design. So why couldn't you have made that as a cheap car based on the old Fiesta platform? They would be absolute design icons, even though they cost peanuts.
Yep.
And I just don't understand why you can't do that. People automatically assume cheap, therefore has to look cheap. You have to insult people.
Yeah, I don't understand any. Okay, so what's give me an example of something that's super cheap but beautifully designed. Can you think of it? Can you think of anything?
Challenge accepted. That's a tough one. I'm sure there's people screaming at the screen right now saying, "Oh, what about this? What about that?"
Yeah, I know, because I can't think of anything either. But there have to be things out there.
I can give you a brand that maybe works.
All right.
Muji.
Oh, you're right. That's right.
That seems to be very economical, very cheap, honest materials, but everything has real care and attention to it. Look at that wall-hanging CD player. No cover, no glass, no buttons, just pull a little tab.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, you're right, man.
That's not a bad thing. Or Eames, Charles and Ray Eames, when they started off wanting to do this furniture, it was supposed to be for the masses. It was supposed to be cheap injection molded plastic. People could afford good design, and the irony is now a plastic chair is going to cost you $1,000.
Yeah, but you're right though. Initially, those things were cheap, right? Yeah, and they're beautiful.
Oh God, yeah. I have a load. I love them. I love Eames.
And me too. Yeah, I've got an Eames rocker. It's beautiful, man. That thing.
Yeah, I've got a lounge chair, and I just look at it. I don't really sit in it.
All right, man. Look, I've taken up a lot of your time. I will say, honestly, David, first of all, thank you, man, for doing this. And it was
a pleasure.
It was a pure and utter joy. I mean, I feel like there's so many more things I want to talk to you about.
I know we didn't even get into watches or anything like that. We kind of skipped that topic.
I would happily have you on again if you have the time, man, because you have so many interesting ideas. But honestly, man, thank you so much for doing this. It's been an utter joy.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for it. It's been a really awesome, quick afternoon chatting to you, and let's definitely do this again.
Yeah, for sure, man. Now we're having awkward English, embarrassing, decoupling conversations.
Yeah, the 10-minute goodbye.
Yeah, bye.
Bye. Yeah, see you later. Toodle pip.
All right. Thanks again, man. It was a real delight.
Take care.
All right. See you, man.
Thanks, everyone.